In this video, we'll show you how FortiClient EMS helps administrators to quickly set up SSL VPN for remote workers. This way, the remote workers can securely access corporate data. We will start with showing how to configure SSL VPN on the FortiGate. Then we will use EMS to create a FortiClient installer and provision VPN from the EMS. Finally, we will demonstrate FortiClient installation on the endpoint and securely connect the endpoint to the corporate network using VPN. First, we are going to configure a VPN user on the FortiGate. Go to User and Devices, User Definition to create a local user. It is recommended that you add a two-factor authentication for enhanced security. For more details on using a two-factor authentication, please refer to the following video. In the production environment, you are more likely to add a group rather than a single user. You can create a user group under User and Devices, User Groups. Next, configure the SSL VPN portal. Go to VPN, SSL VPN portals. There are 3 pre-configured portals you can choose from. You can also create a new VPN portal. The pre-configured portals differ based on the type of SSL VPN access. For more details on each of these options, please refer to the SSL VPN video on video.fortinet.com. Next, configure the SSL VPN settings. For Listen on Interfaces, select the Internet-facing interface on the FortiGate. Set the listening port based on your settings. Notice that the IP address here is showing the internal IP address of the Internet-facing interface. The remote user will actually be using an external IP map to this one. Choose a certificate for server certificate. The default is Fortinet Factory. Specify the mode for signing settings. In authentication portal mappings, set the portal to the portal you created earlier. By default, all users and user groups will use the same portal. Please note that we recommend customers to use their own certificates for SSL VPN. Next, let's configure SSL VPN firewall policy. Go to Policy and Objects, Firewall Policy. Fill in the firewall policy name. Incoming interface is the Internet-facing interface. We will select SSL VPN tunnel interface. This is a virtual interface bound to all listening physical interfaces you specified in the VPN settings. Choose the outgoing Internet-facing interface. Set the source. It is mandatory to add a specific user or user group to the source field. Set the destination. In our case, we will set it to all. Alternatively, you can restrict the destination to a specific internal subnet. Set schedule to always, set service to all, and action set to accept. Enable antivirus, web filter, and IPS profiles to protect VPN traffic. Fill out the rest of the settings as needed, enable this policy, and click OK. Now let's look at the configuration on the FortiClient EMS side. Here we are accessing EMS using the FortiClient Cloud. We are going to create a FortiClient installer with pre-configured VPN settings. As our first step, we are going to configure an endpoint profile. Profile defines FortiClient software configuration for endpoints. Administrators can use the endpoint profile to install and upgrade FortiClients on endpoints. FortiClient EMS comes with a default profile. EMS applies this profile to any groups you create. The default profile is designed to provide effective level of protection. You can edit the default profile or add and remove settings or create a new profile. For your example, we will edit the default profile to add the VPN settings too. Select the VPN tab, provide a name for VPN tunnel. For the type, we will select SSL VPN, provide the remote gateway. This is the address of the FortiGate. Specify the port. The port number should be same as configured in SSL VPN settings on the gateway FortiGate. Next, we are going to create an installer package. The installer will contain the FortiClient installation files with the pre-configured VPN settings from the profile we configured earlier. This way, the user can simply install the FortiClient and use the pre-configured VPN to connect remotely. Go to Manage Installers and open Deployment Packages. Add a new deployment package. This will start the wizard. Select the FortiClient release. Provide a name for the installer. Select applicable features. For detailed information on the features, please refer to EMS Administrator Guide. Next, configure advanced features. We are going to enable desktop and start menu shortcuts. Also, we will select the endpoint default profile to include in the installer. EMS applies the profile to endpoints once it has installed FortiClient. As you recall, we configured the user profile earlier and included the VPN settings in the profile. So the installer will contain information to connect the end user FortiClient to the EMS and get provisioned. Click Finish. The FortiClient deployment package is added to the FortiClient EMS and displays on the Manage Installer Deployment Packages pane. The deployment package may include a exe, MSI, and DMG files depending on your configuration. Next, the administrator will download the FortiClient installer package or distribute it to end users through their software deployment systems. For example, SCCM server. The EMS administration guide will have further details on the installer deployment. The end user will then access the FortiClient installer and go through the installation wizard on their machine. You can see detailed information on the system requirements in the FortiClient administrator guide. If it is a new FortiClient installation, you do not need to reboot the system. When upgrading the FortiClient version, you must restart the system for configuration changes to take place. After FortiClient successfully connects, the active connection will show on the EMS side. All FortiClient settings are locked and in read-only mode when EMS is provisioning configuration for the endpoints. The SSL VPN configuration is already embedded in installer and updates provided by EMS so the end user can connect using their login credentials which were configured earlier on the gateway FortiGate. Once the SSL VPN connection is established, the remote user can securely access corporate data. And this concludes our video. Thank you for watching.